Welcome to Trigger Talk, your place for everything first-person shooters like Battlefield, Call of Duty, and so much more. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm very, very excited for this episode. I think you are too, so I'm very keen to get into it.
We are hyped because we're going to be talking about Battlefield Labs, the leaks, some of the details from the developers, all the things around the next Battlefield game. So, let's jump in. Battlefield. We all expected when Battlefield Labs was announced that there would be a large quantity of leaks, a never-ending amount of leaks, because when you give the public access to something that people are interested in, it will make it out. It will be heavily discussed, shared. Because why would you, as EA, take the time to give Steve a cease and desist, or Nancy a cease and desist, or why would you go and give Joe a cease and desist? It's not worth the time, because as soon as you do that, there's like 27 million other people that are also doing that. So it gives us a good look at some of the ongoing changes and information, and just an overall look at Battlefield, the next game, which is pretty exciting. Yeah,
I never understood, look, at face value, I understand the NDA thing. Like, this is a private playtest, let's keep it under wraps. But like, it was obviously going to get leaked, and like you said, there's no reason to be sending out cease and desists when, like you said, it will just spawn. Like, someone will get it taken down, and then it'll just spawn. Once something's on the internet, it's there forever. It's never going away.
It's impossible to get rid of it.
Yeah. So I don't know really what they were expecting. I don't know if it was maybe because what I will say is once it had been, I don't know, a day, there's stuff all over the place now and it hasn't been taken down. I'm wondering if they legitimately just had the NDA stuff there so that, let's just say it was like terrible. Let's just say this game sucked and everyone's like, oh my God, look at this terrible game. Then they have got the NDA in place that maybe they would crack down on that. But I feel like because the feedback I've seen is like 90%, oh my God, this actually looks good. And so maybe they're seeing that and being like, all right, well, this is just free advertising. Like, let's not even bother taking it down. Yeah. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this, because even initially, I'm pretty sure they were taking down audio on a lot of these. And then I've seen tweets. I've actually got some up on my screen as we're recording just to sort of watch it as we're talking. And some of the ones that I've seen posted on Twitter, they've said, here is the original footage I just posted, and it has audio this time because EA is apparently retracting the takedowns. So wow, it legitimately just seems like they're like, it's out there and everyone's happy. So actually, who cares? Let's just let people do what they want, which I think is fine. Like, let people, if people are excited, who cares about keeping it secret? I think to a certain extent, keep a bit of secrecy, because obviously I want to see some big cool trailers and reveal some new stuff, obviously. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I just think this sort of thing, it's seemingly only on one map from what we've seen. It's not showing every single detail of the game. So like, if we just get a little snippet like this of some gameplay, and it all looks good so far, then I think that's a good thing. I think that's free marketing, essentially, and they may as well lean into that.
Oh yeah. I think the strength of something like this is you get the real value, obviously, is the people in the tests, Battlefield Labs giving the feedback on the actual gameplay mechanics itself. But a secondary level is the amount of feedback that you're getting from the community as well. You're getting an amount of content and discussion and back and forth from people. I've seen developers talking on these threads of retweets of leaked gameplay and talking about some of the decisions they're making and some behind the scenes details on things like now you can pull people to safety to revive them, and like there's information around that, and there's a lot more back and forth discussion from the people either actually playing it, giving the feedback directly to the developers, and then also the standard audience as well, giving feedback and thoughts and opinions and perspectives on what has been shared. Now, obviously, from an EA DICE perspective, you kind of struggle with the control, but I feel like they controlled the messaging, they controlled who got to see it and all that stuff with Battlefield 2042. It didn't go well. And now we finally have a time that we can get back into this idea of like the community guiding the developers to the direction that Battlefield needs.
Yeah, 100%. That is the best way to put it. Is like how I think that's how the process should work for any multiplayer game. Obviously, single player games are a bit different. I think single player teams kind of like know what they need to make and they don't need feedback on it that much. But
yeah, and you're there for the story and you don't give feedback on the story.
Yeah. And so like I love that approach that they kind of make a game based on, you know, feedback from previous games like 2042 that we didn't like this and that. And hey, we do like this and that from Battlefield 4 and whatever. They've sort of seemingly crafted a game around that, and it's obviously in the very early stage. And I like that they're now kind of like, all right, well, here's what we currently have. Let's put it out there and like help us get it to where you want it to be. This is, say, 80% done. What can we do in that final 20%, which is pretty much the most important 20%? What can we do to improve it? Is there anything that is an issue that needs to be changed? Stuff like that. Like that is the way that this process should work. Times are very different now than I don't feel like that needed to happen back in the day. I don't think like in 2010 that we needed to be a part of that, because back then, for whatever reason, all these studios, not just Battlefield, but like COD, Halo, all of them, they all tended to just like know what they needed to do and they would deliver most of the time. I feel like back then there was a lot less like failures. It was just a game might be like a 6 out of 10 back then, whereas nowadays there's just like so many genuine flops. I don't know if that's just more because there's more pressure or what, but it does feel like they need a bit more guidance these days. Also probably because we've all been playing these games now for like multiple decades, so we arguably know more than they do themselves. So yeah, I think,
and there's a good amount of people that are working on this game that weren't playing or weren't making the games at the times that many Battlefield fans have gotten into these games. So
yeah, exactly.
It's understandable from that perspective.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that's just a great way to put it, that like they can now sort of ask for us to guide them in the right direction. We don't know how to make games. We don't necessarily even know what is best for the game, because I do think often gamers think that they know what is better and we just don't. Like if we were in charge of every decision, we'd probably make a terrible game. But we can help them go in the right direction, and then they can you know, walk the rest of that distance, but we can just point them in the right direction in the first place. I think that's the best way to approach it. And so I love that they're doing this. I think Labs is a really, really good idea. I hope, my only thing now is I just really hope they actually listen to the feedback and it's not just like PR, you know what I mean? Like, hey, here's the early thing, like we're going to ask for feedback, and then they get a bunch of feedback and it just doesn't change. I do think DICE has generally been good at actually onboarding feedback. Look at 2042, like obviously still not a perfect game, but from what it was at launch to what it ended up, they definitely listened to us. So I'm going to hope that they do that again, but that's really my only thing that I need to see now is just, anything that people are saying, just listen to it. Doesn't mean it has to be done, right? But just at least listen to it and consider it. My only concern is that, I'll be honest, all of the gameplay I have seen is from people who, I don't know if this is legitimately their first time touching a controller, but they are so bad. Like, genuine. I'm not even trying to be rude or funny. They're just atrocious at this game. Like, bro's walking out into the middle of the street and just, like, looking there, and he's just getting shot. I don't know if this guy gets a single kill in all the gameplay I'm watching. So my only concern is I hope that they don't invite a bunch of bots and then take on all that feedback and just form this game around super, super casual people. Because that is
tinfoil hat theory that I have is these are actually developers sharing all of this stuff, and it's all part of a masterful marketing strategy. And that's why they're bad, is because it gets everyone to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even... The way that games are these days, I would not even be surprised, to be honest. But
I've seen a lot of devs that like are really good game developers, but terrible at playing games.
A lot of the play tests I've ever been involved in for mostly like shooter stuff, that, man, not to be rude, but like, and obviously the people involved, like I'm a creator and everyone else involved in those is a creator, so we're generally people who play the game a lot, but like, man, like some of them people, it's like clearly they work on the game all day and they don't spend any time playing it, which is fair, that's their job, but man, it's just like, yeah. So that's my only concern. Just don't take feedback too literally as well, because if you get a bunch of bots saying like, oh, it's too hard, make this easier, make that easy, like that can be a real negative thing, because I think that's actually one of the key issues that Call of Duty has faced, is they clearly pander to like the casual player base, which is nothing wrong with that. And realistically, that is the biggest player base. But I just think like Battlefield is a pretty hardcore community. It's the type of game that like most people who have been playing Battlefield have been playing for 10 plus years. Like it's pretty rare to get those like really new players to this franchise. So I just don't want them to like, I don't want this to be some really super duper casual game. I just want it to be like the previous Battlefield games, and that's my only concern, is just try and like vet who they're bringing into it a little bit more. Not saying don't bring casuals, because that's obviously very important, but just get some, I don't know if they can somehow find people's KDs in previous games and stuff. Just get some good people in there and like ask them for the feedback too, because it should be based around a balance of veterans and casuals. That's how any game should be balanced. Yeah. And I'm scared that like, I think the best type of games like this is when you have a game that is very easy to pick up, meaning if it's your first time playing a shooter, it's not hard. You can pick it up and you can have fun. But also there is high skill ceiling that if you're a freak, you should be able to dominate everyone. Like that is the perfect balance in my opinion, because it just means that no matter what your skill level, you're going to have fun. If you make a game too easy for casuals, it ruins it for the hardcore play base, which is your target audience, the people who are diehard Battlefield fans. You want to please them. And then also on the flip side, if you make it too hard, you're not going to get any casuals in, which is like 90% of the play base. So it's just a tough balancing act, and that's something I just really hope that they get. I don't know how they can do that. I don't know how they can like tell who's good and who's not, but get some people in there who know what they're talking about, and get some casuals in and get their feedback as well. But just all the gameplay I've seen is from bots, and I'm like, oh man, please don't. I don't want all these people giving all the feedback.
You heard it here first, folks. Sammy's trying to gatekeep Battlefield.
Oh god, pretty much.
Fake fan.
And don't let any vehicle mains in either. No vehicles.
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
Remove all vehicles from Battlefield.
I approve this message. Yeah. It seems like from this one map that we're getting leaks from, it does look like we have at least, if this map ships, we have at least one single city map.
That'll do to start. I'm happy. Just give me one.
I'm okay, because this is one more single map than any. Like this is infinitely more city map than any recent Battlefield game has.
This is really more of what I've wanted in a map than since I mean, even including Battlefield 1. I think Army End from Battlefield 1 is one that I love, but outside of that, they were very open maps, and I did like them, but very open maps. It suited that game.
But when you have open maps for what will almost be a decade before having some freaking city maps.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like they need to balance that as well, because like that has been a big complaint of mine, is that they're all so big and open. I'm fine having it. Give us a map in this game that is absurdly big. I don't care if it's just one map, right? It's fine when it's like some. I think every Battlefield game has always had that. For example, one really small map like a metro or a locker, which is also great. They're like way smaller. If every map was like that, that wouldn't even be Battlefield. But you've got that one small map, and generally there's a pretty massive map too that maybe doesn't play that well, but it's fun for people who like sniping and vehicles and all that. And just give us a balance. That's the thing I want. Like, this map looks good. This is what I want. I would love if half the maps are like this, and then we get some open maps. That's the balance I would hope they go for.
Sammy's over here asking for balance, and I'm just like, make all of the maps city maps. We've gotten enough.
Yeah.
Perfectly balanced at this point would just be an entire game filled with city maps because of how little we've had city maps in the most recent Battlefield games. Like, I was not joking. Like, 2026 is going to be freaking 10 years since Battlefield 1 came out. And crazy. We haven't gotten any freaking like really good city maps, because they may try to fool you that Battlefield 2042 had some city maps, but it did not have any city maps.
None of them were city maps. They were located near or in a city. They were not city maps. Hourglass. That
you
was
could maybe see buildings.
Map. That is not actually a city map though. It was literally in the freaking desert. Like the absolute. Like antithesis of a city. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not trying to get angry on this episode, but just give us. Yeah, this is the type of map. Like from what I can see from the overhead view and on the ground, it looks like this is the type of Battlefield map I've always loved, and yeah, I'm very happy with how it looks. So obviously, you need to play it. A map can look great and it can play terribly. So who knows, but. It looks really promising to me, and I just hope at least there's like another 3 or 4 that are like this, and then if they're all open after that, that's fine as long as they're made well. But this is the type of stuff that Battlefield has needed desperately. That the ability to have that destruction, like some of the destruction we've seen in these leaks, is crazy. You can't really have that on the open maps, and that's such a core, like a core pillar of Battlefield that. Yeah,
I saw more destruction in like a 15-second clip than all of Battlefield 2042.
Legit, yeah. It looks. I don't know if every building can be blown up, but like I've seen a lot of just people shooting rockets at random stuff, and it seems like it all blows up. Like it's crazy, and it looks good too. Obviously, there's been a few bits that look like slightly buggy, but it's also 9 months probably out from launch, 8 months. So I'll give him a bit of leeway on that. Yeah, man, just give me more of that. More destruction, more. I want to feel like fear when I'm running through these cities that, oh my God, what if a tank comes around that corner and blows up the building next to me and it falls on me? Like that's what I've always loved about Battlefield.
Mm-hmm. That's the full experience, because that really immerses you into the I'm in a war feeling. Because when you're in there and you're fighting for your life, it feels like, and you have ability of like coverage. There are tanks around, and they can cause some destruction, but it's not like in many Battlefield 2042 maps where it's just kind of like a friggin' onslaught of vehicles and no real reprieve. Now with this, you do have this opportunity to really like go through the map, have some cover, but also know that cover is not dedicated. It's not permanent. You're not going to be able to hide out there forever. There is an opportunity for destruction to happen, and you can use that to your advantage. Like there is an opportunity for you to adapt and overcome, and like that's what I think Battlefield does best at, when it is balancing the player itself and the location all in a really fun wrapper.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I think a lot of the gameplay I've seen, it looks like, at least on this map, obviously we can't tell for the rest, but it looks like they have tried to balance it a lot more, where vehicles aren't just in their own element doing exactly what they want to do. Like This map looks
Yeah.
like it would be pretty hard to play a tank, not going to lie, which I love. All the tank mains can GTFO. Like, you're going to get blown up so many times on this map because it's all so close. I'm seeing a lot of like blown up tanks in the middle of streets that they seemingly can't get past and stuff. So it's like I don't know if those tanks are ones that have been blown up in the game or if they're just like there permanently, but yeah, it just looks like there's a lot that can kind of get in the way of these vehicles and stuff, and I think that's something that has been really missing in the like vehicles have run rampant since Battlefield 5, I would say. Battlefield 1, they weren't that bad. Battlefield 5 and 2042, they were, well, not just tanks, but vehicles in general, they've been kind of absurdly good, unless it's like a bad player. But a part of that was because they're so open, those maps. So if a tank's sitting out in the middle of nowhere, like you aren't killing it. There's no way you can get close to that. You can obviously shoot rockets at it, but even at that distance, they can often dodge them. They can see a rocket incoming and they just back up a little bit. On this map, it looks like the tank drivers wouldn't even be able to see. I could be hiding in the little doorway waiting for this tank to run past, and then I'm running out there with my C4 and just blowing them up, and they have nothing to say about it. So that's, for me, the perfect balance, because I know a good vehicle player will still dominate on those sort of maps, but just giving players the chance to actually take out vehicles is like such an important thing. It's been really lacking. They've kind of nerfed infantry a lot in the last few games, which we've said so many times, like that shouldn't happen, because infantry is 90% of the player base, like not only in general but in each game. Like, even if you got every tank main into the same lobby, there's only going to be 4 people that can use a tank. The rest of them are still playing infantry. So like, it should be catered around infantry mostly. And that's not to say make vehicles useless. It's awesome when the
I'm
vehicles are
saying
good.
that, Sammy. I'm saying that.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. But I think it's fine
Other
when
people
they're
might not be
strong.
saying that, but I definitely am.
It's fine when they're strong. It's just, I think they should be a bit more of a glass cannon, in the sense of they can deal insane damage, but also let them be taken out pretty easy. Like, well, not easy, but just, if I get up there with a C4 and I'm right next to a tank and it hasn't seen me, it should be dead. Like, end of question. It should be dead immediately. But previous games, they've even nerfed it to where you can't carry enough C4 to actually take out a tank in one go, which is just like ridiculous. So, yeah, I think the map design is the thing that looks the most impressive to me so far. The gameplay is hard to gauge because, like I said, the guy playing in the gameplay I've seen is not good. So it's hard to tell, but the map design looks very interesting. It looks like it is an old school map. It almost looks like it's a remaster of an old map. Like, it gives me like Karkan vibes from Battlefield 3. So yeah, very, very happy with how that looks so far.
I was also feeling like it was very Call of Duty-esque as well. Like, it felt very inspired by the more like recent Call of Duty entries, where you definitely feel like, I don't know, like speed in terms of like how much you can get into the action. Like, all of the clips that I've seen, it feels like the best kinds of Call of Duty matches where you're like going into the action, you're feeling like you're a part of things, rather than like 2042 did, where it felt like you're trudging towards something. It's like this felt very much like I'm in the action, I'm a part of things, we're pushing to claim this area and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has been what Battlefield has been missing for the last couple entries. Like, it felt like you were very much walking toward an area without the payoff or the success. Or I've seen a lot of discussion where in criticisms towards like Star Wars Outlaws, a lot of people's criticism with Star Wars Outlaws is like, there are tasks, but unlike many other open world games, there isn't anything in between the tasks. And I feel like what Battlefield has done historically very well is, at least when they had good Battlefield games, when you were going towards an objective, you would find a skirmish. You would find moments to have impact that has kind of been missing in the last few iterations of Battlefield.
Yeah, to me, that is the key to good map design, is almost like storytelling in a game where it's like you've got your key points, like the flags, or if you're playing Rush, the objectives or whatever. And even like, not even just the objectives, but even just some key like points of interest. There might just be a, like a real popular area or whatever. And obviously in any shooter, those areas need to be good. Like they need to be designed well. But what I think I love about Battlefield the most is, like you just said, you'll be on your way to one of them, and you know that like once you get there, you're in a fight. Like there's going to be people there waiting. But what you don't expect is that you're running there and you're like a third of the way there, and then the team has just rolled up on us. Like there's an enemy squad just there. I'm now back. I'm like about to run across this street, but now I'm backed up behind this corner of a building, shooting down the street, trying to like get them away so I can get to where I was going. And you get into this random gunfight, and it feels to me like actual war. Obviously, I'm not a soldier. I don't know how that plays out, but like when you're watching movies and stuff, they don't just get into the, I'm thinking of like Black Hawk Down, right? They go for their mission. It doesn't go the way that they intend it. There's always something going wrong. And that is kind of what makes that movie and most war movies feel so intense and like just great to watch, because their objective is like, all right, go save the chopper pilot. But there's like 10 different fights before they actually even get there in the first place, because they're like pinned down by all the enemies and stuff. Like that is what makes Battlefield so good, is that you have those moments in the game and it makes you feel immersed, because you're literally running to an objective and you're in your head, you're just thinking, I just need to get to the C flag and capture it. But then all of a sudden on the way there's like 2 enemy squads that come, and you and your team are in a fight. Your teammate goes down, you got to go revive them. You win that gunfight, and then you move on, and then, oh, damn, there's another one, and there's a tank in the street. What the hell? Now I'm going to blow the tank. Like, that is what makes Battlefield so great. You don't get that in Call of Duty. You just run to the flag and shoot people, and it's so much fun. I love COD. I've always been a COD fan, but it's such a different type of game. Battlefield has never really been that. You don't just run to the flag and shoot people. There's always those random skirmishes, like you said. And it's, from what I'm watching, it looks like that happens a lot. I'm seeing just random parts of the map where, like, the guy's just running around a corner with his squad thinking he's safe, and then there's just a tank there. Like, those are the best moments in Battlefield. That's what makes this franchise.
I feel like so much of what makes Battlefield has been kind of watered down throughout the last few years, especially in those moments of, like, Battlefield has always had like really large maps. And I feel like with 2042 and to an extent also Battlefield 5, they felt like they had to be the large map game without realizing that the reason that people really like the large maps are the moments in between objective play.
Yeah.
The time frame of getting to the point is just as effective and impactful as the objective play is. And I feel like there is an opportunity, and hopefully what we've seen looks like this is going to be the case. But again, we've also seen other things that look great but just don't end up happening. I feel like there's an opportunity for them to bring back that experience of, like, the entire aspect of the game is the joy, not just the capturing of the objective or playing the objective. I feel like we're getting close. I hope this is the case. I hope it actually comes true that this is actually the case. This is the time that we get something along those lines. But we'll just honestly have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's that's definitely the thing for me, is like trying to, like, this looks good, and I'm also, things have looked good in the past, like you said, and so I'm trying to not get too excited. The key difference for me with this one that makes me slightly more optimistic is just that it does actually look like Battlefield, whereas like 2042 looked, I remember seeing all the trailers and stuff and was like, damn, this looks crazy. Like, there's a freaking tornado and there's 128 players. It looks crazy. But I don't think I ever, like, in hindsight, I don't think I watched any of those trailers or the gameplay and thought, man, this looks like Battlefield 4. Like, it just didn't. It didn't look anything like any of those games. And I think in my head I tried to, like justify it, because I'm obviously a super fan of Battlefield, and I want it to do well. So I think I saw it and it looked cool, and then I was like, oh well, it's the sequel to Battlefield 4, so it'll just be a slightly different version, and it might not look that much like it. But in hindsight, like I said, it didn't look like Battlefield ever in any of those trailers, even though I still think those trailers are absolutely dope. But when you go back and watch them now, I think you can tell like it wasn't Battlefield. Whereas the stuff we have seen of this from the leaks, and even that 10-second gameplay snippet they showed, that's probably the key thing that stands out, is like I can actually see this look like it looks like a Battlefield. It also weirdly, like you said before, kind of looks a bit Call of Duty-esque. It looks like...
But in the good ways.
Yeah. It looks just grounded. The thing that I loved about Modern Warfare when they rebooted that, I got so many issues with that game itself, but its vibe was up there with the best games I've ever played in terms of shooters. It just felt so grounded. It was probably the most realistic, even maybe still is the most realistic shooter that I've played. Keep in mind, I haven't played like Arma and Squad and those sort of games, but
yeah,
it was so grounded in reality. There was no stupid skins and stuff initially. Obviously they eventually did come. There was the freaking waifu skins and stuff. Like at launch, that game just felt...
But those are like late game additions typically.
Yeah. It just felt very grounded and very... I don't know how to explain it. It just felt real. Like it felt like a real war. And that's the thing that Battlefield generally did pretty well in the past. But even with Battlefield, they never felt... It did still feel like this Battlefield universe. It didn't feel like I was just in a war, whereas this one looks a lot more like genuinely realistic. Like,
yeah, it feels like a war movie instead of like a science fiction war movie. Because that's kind of like last few iterations. I think Battlefield 1 really captured like I'm in World War I.
Yeah. Battlefield
5, not really. It didn't really capture the World War II vibes that we kind of expect and want out of a World War II historic inspired shooter. And then Battlefield 2042 was just like, whatever.
They threw aesthetic, or not so much aesthetic, but they just threw the like setting out the window. They were like, we don't even know what this is. It's just a bunch of semi-futuristic looking people, and that's it. Like, because this setting was a great idea, but the execution wasn't. So it just seemed
apparently
like
Russia's the bad guy, but kind of not. But also the U.S. is kind of bad guy, but also kind of not.
Yeah.
Also, no pats are a thing, but they're also just fighting each other instead of gaining traction. And I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean with this, though. Even though, and I will actually say, I'll hold my hands up and say, for 2042, I remember like really praising that when I had been invited to the preview stuff, that I was telling people about the setting and stuff, and I was like, this sounds absolutely sick. There's a bunch of people that like haven't got a home and they're just fighting for this team because they have to survive and stuff. It didn't pay off in the game. I think the premise was all right, but it just didn't pay off.
It's them describing to you, describing it to you at an event versus it actually showing you that in the gameplay or any of the experiences or any of the maps. Like if there was a map and most of the maps were like inspired by the cinematic trailer where like London is flooded and like these big environmental shifts are happening, there's like makeshift hospitals all the way throughout, like that would make me more understanding of like this world. But 100%. That wasn't actually in the game.
Yeah.
Also, like, oh, hey guys, the world sucks and the environment is terrible. But also, it's a great day to be Angel.
Yeah. And all the maps were like all pretty and nice looking. I'm like, this world doesn't look that bad. What do you mean global warming? All these places are...
Look, guys, there's sand in the desert. Doesn't that feel like... No. There's supposed to be sand in the desert. Make the sand water and a desert.
Yeah.
That would make it weird.
Yeah. That's just the thing that with this gameplay we've seen, I feel like I already have a better identity of what this game is without them. They haven't even actually shown us anything. They've shown us that 10-second gameplay clip, which was pretty much like nothing. Like nothing really happened. It just showed some people running and then a building blew up. Like, I feel like I already know more about this game than the setting of 2042. I feel like this game will just be some sort of like World War III setting. I'm assuming like it's gonna, because if it's not a World War III, then it's mostly gonna only take place in one area of the world, I guess, and that would be a bit boring. So I feel like they will make it World War III, where there's gonna be like, there might be a freaking map in London or something, you know, like I feel like it's not all going to be like a Middle Eastern type setting. And so that's the vibe I already get. And it feel like, yeah, I don't know, watching this stuff, and it's like, it feels like these people are actually fighting over this city that they want to, it's like a key place that they need to hold. It never felt like that in 2042. None of it even made sense half the time. Like Kaleidoscope, you were fighting, the point of it was like you were fighting over the city, but like we're fighting in essentially Central Park. Like it was just like this garden in the city. Like, why are we fighting over this part? This is not useful. What about all these buildings that we can, take control of and have people safely living in, all that stuff? It was just, we're fighting over the park in the middle. This doesn't feel like that. It feels like they actually need to win this battle right here. Like that is such an important thing to me that I think has gone. Yeah, I think since Battlefield 1 they haven't nailed that, because that's how. For example, I mentioned Army N before in Battlefield 1. That felt like I needed to win that battle, or else they were going to control that city, and then we were like really in trouble that they were going to overrun the whole country. That's how that felt. You felt like you were like fighting for your city, and yeah, no game has really done it since then. I don't think Battlefield 5 had some moments, but it didn't land in that way still. Maybe not until the end. I think a lot of the Japanese maps were really well done, but yeah, I just think that's such a crucial thing to nail, is that you load into a game and you actually feel like, all right, we need to control this city. We got to win this game, or else they take over. Like that adds stakes to it, even though I know at the end of the day it's multiplayer. No one really cares about that, but I just think that's the thing Battlefield always did really well, that it just makes you that slight bit more immersed. Because yeah, if I want to play a game that I'm not really immersed in, that's what Call of Duty is kind of for me. It's that's just the run around and shoot people and have fun game. Battlefield has always been that, like, it's almost like you're playing for something bigger, if that makes sense.
And like that's what you want to feel. Like you want to feel like you're in the war. Like you're a part of something bigger, and you are the faceless soldier pushing the point. Like that's where Battlefield feels real. That's where it's different from a Call of Duty or an Apex or a Fortnite or what have you. Like that's like the destruction aspect, but the impact that you feel like you have in the battlefield. That's what really makes it shine.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was the key issue with 2042 early for me, was that it just didn't feel like I was having any impact. I could go like 40-1 and it didn't feel like I impacted the game at all. Like I was just in my own game. Like I wasn't actually part of this bigger game. Do you know what I mean? Whereas some of the old ones, it felt like you are actually a cog in the wheel of this battle, and you're actually important, and everyone on your team's important, and you're trying to all band together and win. Like I think that's what, it's not even with games, that's also what makes like war movies and stuff feel awesome. Like Saving Private Ryan, they were all on the same team pushing for the same objective, and they all came together and won. Like that's what makes that the battle camaraderie. Like that's such a crucial element of like war stories, and that's what this game is intended to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, like that's what you sign up for Battlefield for. Like to get into the world of Battlefield, to feel like you're there making the impacts and doing all these things, not trudging through a field. Like that's not what I play Battlefield for.
Nah, definitely not.
But yeah, we'll see. The leaks are really cool. I'm glad that they're kind of slowing down on like taking them down. And I feel like we're getting closer. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what actually releases and when the marketing starts coming and we have a release date and all these things. But it's good that they're actually making the steps. They're taking the steps necessary to hopefully deliver something really good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that makes me a bit optimistic. Is it does seem like whether the game pays off or not in the end, it feels like they are doing everything that they can to try and ensure that it succeeds. It might still fail. Like a lot of games coming out that look awesome and they fail, so it might not do that well. But it just feels like they're kind of doing everything in their power to at least give it the best chance. And I think that's really all you can do when you make a game, is just do everything that you can to like put it in place to succeed. At the end of the day, it'll succeed whether or not it's a good game. There's plenty of games out there that suck, that sell millions of copies, and vice versa. There's plenty of games that are pretty decent and they fail. You can only do your best job at trying to just set it all up in the way that you know is the best way for it to succeed. And it feels like they're doing that with the play testing and just the setting and stuff. It just feels, I don't know, it just feels like they're doing everything right. Again, whether that ends well, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm more optimistic about this one than I have been in a while. I think since Battlefield 1, which like you said is that's a freaking decade ago pretty soon. So yeah, it's a long time since I've felt this optimistic about Battlefield, I think.
But we also have to be wary.
Yeah. I think, we've
been here before.
Yeah. Cautiously optimistic is like the most correct saying that I've now ever heard for that. Like that's exactly how I feel about this game. I'm very optimistic, but I'm so caught. Like I don't want to let myself get away. As in, I don't want to. I'm like, there's like two versions of me. There's the little kid that's like, oh my God, this looks so sick. I can't wait to play. And then there's the adult version of me putting his hand on the kid's shoulder saying, hang on, buddy. Like, let's just wait and see what happens.
Hold your horses, pal.
So, yeah, I think we all should have that, because I don't want to. I know, like, in the lead up making content and stuff, I won't be trying to overgas it, because I don't want to lead people on and be like, oh my God, this is going to be the best game ever. And then it doesn't, because that hurts, man. That was so disappointing with 2042 that I was so excited and it just wasn't what we wanted. And I think we all kind of need to avoid that. That doesn't mean be completely pessimistic, but I think it's just definitely a balancing act that, yeah, cautiously optimistic just sums it up perfectly. Be excited, but don't get too ahead of yourself either.
Yeah, this is the time where we got to keep our expectations in check, but also you get a little excited, depending on what you see.
Yeah, I think it's important to. I think a lot of people just don't at all get excited, and to me personally, I don't think that's any better than.
Yeah, it's either like I'm only hype, or I hate everything.
Yeah, for me, it's like, what is the point in really anything in life at all if you can't be a bit excited about stuff like this? Like, if you love video games, you love Battlefield, what better feeling is there to be excited about the next game? To me, that's like one of my favorite things, when there's a game that's like a month away and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. Like, it gets me through the day. That stuff is so exciting to me. And like, it borderline like gives you life. It's like I just remember back to 2042, you and me doing these podcasts, and we were just so excited every week. And yeah, so I think that's why I think that balancing act is important, because if you're just completely pessimistic, even though realistically people have a right to be that way, because I think we need them to prove us wrong. But I think if you go in with zero excitement, like, that's actually, then you're not having fun. You know what I mean? Video games are meant to be fun. So I think have some excitement, but also, just don't let it become like pure positivity where you're not looking at the negatives and stuff. If you see some stuff in the leaks that looks a bit concerning, like, you be concerned about it, but you can still be excited. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. You can be excited, but also just be aware that there is an opportunity for disappointment. So you got to just kind of choose what to be excited about, and probably wait for more footage to get truly hyped.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can let yourself get a little excited. It's okay. But let us know your thoughts on the leaks of Battlefield, whatever it's going to be called. It might just be called Battlefield, parentheses 2025, or 2026 if GTA 5 ends up being released this year. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or contact uplinkpodcast.com if you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, check out Sammy Boy's YouTube channels. He just launched a huge video all about Warzone for its 5th anniversary.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So go check that out. It is high up on my watch list. I'm really looking forward to diving deep into that. So check that out. If you're into Star Wars, check out Star Wars Uplink. But as always, we'll see you later, video gamers.